It's easy to lose track of the reasons why people practice Buddhism or spirituality. We seem to kind of approach it with this idea that there's something wrong with us. I think everybody kind of does this to some degree, especially in the beginning, is that we acknowledge that there's a certain trauma, some form of suffering that we're going through, and we want to find a solution in order to sort of resolve that and make it go away. But what we do when we end up making that sort of conclusion is that we sort of admit that we think that there's something wrong with us, right? And this is the reason why we all tend to sort of gravitate towards spirituality, is that we think that we are somebody that needs to be improved in some way. And I wouldn't necessarily say that spirituality is really so much about improving. The practice of meditation, yoga, prayer, all these things don't really exist as a way to improve you. I think that these sort of modalities exist as a way to get us reintegrated with these subtleties in life that are already there within our present moment. For example, like yoga gets us more in touch with our bodies, right? Our bodies are just in this, perpetual state of presence all the time. We're just not paying attention to them. So with yoga, we tap into our bodies. We become more conscious of our bodies. That is a subtle recognition. That can just be a change in our perception of how we view ourselves, right? The practice of, breath work, for example, is about getting more in touch with your breath, getting in touch with your breathing, something that's always happening, something that's always occurring all the time, yet we don't pay attention to it, right? And it isn't that these sort of practices in spirituality, like meditation, which is, meditation is getting you more in touch with your awareness, which is, again, already existing. It's already there. We only have to really shift our perception in order to acknowledge the fact that it's always flowing inside of us. We're just not paying attention. So I think that, with spirituality, it's really about acknowledging all of these sort of subtleties in life that are already there. And they don't happen as a way to sort of improve you per se. It isn't that you go and you start practicing these things and somehow you're able to sort of eradicate, 25 years worth of trauma. I think what happens is once you learn to pay more attention to what's in your moment right now, which is your body, which is your breathing, right, which is awareness, then you'll start to realize the power, the magnitude of really where your positioning is in this universe and in this world. And once you really tap into that truth, then all of those memories, all of that trauma that we hold on to so strongly becomes wildly insignificant. It becomes something that does not take the place of this sort of beauty and presence that's within our field all the time, right? Because your body can be in this sort of space of complete silence and peace, but your mind is just being riddled with all of these emotions and all of this static. And in order to resolve ourselves from that, we don't necessarily have to go back and go through this tireless journey of trying to understand why these traumas happen. The only thing that we need to do is anchor ourselves in the moment that we're in. And for the most part, I imagine that the moment that we're in does not really contain any of those traumas because those traumas happened in the past. And anchoring ourselves in the present moment where all of those subtleties exist. And not only do these subtleties of awareness and being conscious of our body exist, practice in spirituality allows us to become more integrated with the things that are immediately impacting our present lives that we tend to take for granted. For example, we have, our jobs, we have food, we have access to water, we have friends, we have family, we have a roof over our heads. There's a lot of things that we have that we tend to take for granted because a lot of our focus is involved in something really external to ourselves. So you're like a musician and you want to be famous, or you're an influencer and you want to be famous, or you excel in some sort of craft and your main objective is to succeed at being an entrepreneur or a life coach or whatever the case may be. That is a worthy sort of journey to go down. But what happens, I think, for a lot of people is once our focus is completely dialed into just one objective and basing all of your happiness and all of your peace off of this one objective, you completely lose sight of the fact that you have so much to be grateful for in your moment that we're not looking at, right? And I think meditation and spirituality is really about getting us to become more aware of the fact that we have so much to be grateful for, right? The fact that we even fucking exist should be looked at as a miracle. The fact that we have the ability to kind of use our hands and move through life and eat, and the fact that we have access to all of these things that we take for granted, I think is something that definitely should be celebrated. And I think that spirituality helps to anchor that. We want to celebrate all of our really magnificent wins in life, but we also want to celebrate the really, really simple things because that's nature, right? Nature is simple. Nature is always moving and it's always dancing. And we can learn a lot from the nature that surrounds us because of its simplicity. And I think once we're tapped in and we start acting in a way that nature wants us to act, which is just being present and moving through life in this sort of soft, cohesive way, then we can start embodying more of this gratitude.